intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or another print disability that makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org.
Your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for Wednesday, January 21st, 2026. Your readers today are
Larry Beenan
and Linda Ranella. Starting with the weather report. Breezy and not as cold today with a little snow, accumulating a coating to an inch. Planned for a slow and slippery evening commute, a high of 33. Intermittent snow and flurries tonight, accumulating 1 to 2 inches, a low of 24. A bit of snow tomorrow, a high of 28, low of 7. Friday, a couple of snow showers, a high of 11, low of -1. Saturday, clouds and sun, very cold, high of 8, low of -2. Sunday, mostly cloudy and frigid, high of 11, low of 6. Monday, snow showers possible, high of 17, and a low of 10. And for Tuesday, mostly cloudy and frigid, high of 16, low of 8. Sunrise, 7:40 a.m., and sunset tonight is at 5:14 p.m. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Our opening story, Hochul's $260 billion budget emphasizes child care, proposes ending tax on some tips, increasing school funding. Albany, Governor Kathy Hochul proposed a $260 billion state budget Tuesday to expand child care across New York, end taxes on tipped wages, impose taxes on alternative nicotine products, and extend corporate franchise taxes through 2029. Hochul, a Buffalo-born Democrat up for election this year, budgeted $4.5 billion to expand child care and pre-kindergarten programs, a major theme of her State of the State address last week, when she promised that by 2028, there would be universal pre-kindergarten for every 4-year-old in New York. The spending plan included $1.23 billion for the Child Care Assistance Program, a 40% increase for a program for families below 85% of the state median income. Personal income taxes would not be increased to fund the expansion. In the wake of federal cuts, Hochul's budget highlighted a surge in high-tech investment, and a subsequent stock market rally fueled consumer spending, helping the state stay afloat amid Trump administration tariffs, inflation, and the longest federal shutdown in U.S. history. This is not an austerity budget, but it is a disciplined one, Hochul said during a presentation in the state capitol's Red Room. We're continuing to invest in the core services New Yorkers rely on while keeping the growth of state operating funds at a responsible level. The spending plan includes efforts to fight surging insurance costs, in part by allocating $2 billion to state police to fight insurance fraud, and allowing certain housing projects to not have to go through the Reform State Environmental Quality Review Act. The budget increases school funding $1.6 billion to $39.3 billion, funds the final year of the State Department of Transportation's 5-year capital plan, which includes the Kennington Expressway project in Buffalo, and includes the final year of the state's 5-year plan to create 100,000 affordable homes, including 10,000 for vulnerable populations. The budget includes reserves at a high record of $14.6 billion, according to a book outlining the spending plan. We are not assuming calm seas ahead, but we have built a boat ready to weather whatever comes next, Hochul stated in a message in her budget book. Because of years of responsible fiscal management, our reserves today are almost 6 times larger than when I took office, strong enough to protect New York in downturn, and flexible enough to respond when families and businesses need help. Revenues have continued to exceed projections, driven in part by a robust economy and record Wall Street bonuses. When the economy grows, we are able to invest more without raising taxes or asking New Yorkers to foot the bill. Nonetheless, we will have to offset significant cuts in federal funding. New Yorkers are counting on their elected leaders to understand the pressures they face and fight to deliver the support they need. Assemblymember Joseph Sempolinski, a Republican who represents Allegheny and Cattaraugus counties, slammed the budget plan. The governor talks a lot about making New York more affordable, but then she rolls out $260 billion budget. Her second budget of more than $250 billion. He said in a statement, "This budget will only make New York a harder place to live, to work, to raise a family, and do business." The budget also includes ends on state taxes on tipped wages up to $25,000 a year for single filers that earn up to $150,000, a joint earners who make up to $300,000. Starting this tax year, tax filers will be allowed to reduce their adjusted gross income by the same amount allowed by federal law. Expands temporary corporate franchise taxes on filers with business income tax bases over $5 billion through the tax year of 2029. The state will save $1.6 billion by severing itself from tax breaks approved in President Trump's Big Beautiful Bill. The state will reform the child and dependent care credit to provide some 230,000 filers with an average increased benefit of $576. Defines alternative nicotine products such as pouches to be placed under the state's 75% whole tax on tobacco products. An additional $50 million will be funneled into the state's health care reform law starting in 2028. A vape product registry to identify which products are legal and can be sold in the state. Linda?
Thank you, Larry. Hochul's initiatives focus on emerging industries. This is like a follow-up to the article Larry just read. A little more information here. This is written by news reporter Mike Petro. Emerging industries where innovation can lead to regional advancement and spur job creation are among the chief economic development priorities in the executive budget proposed by Governor Kathy Hochul on Tuesday. A major emphasis for Hochul in the executive budget is modernizing manufacturing to help reverse the state's job losses in the past several decades in the industry. Hochul is proposing $300 million for the second year of investment in Promote Opportunity with Electric Readiness for Underdeveloped Properties Fund to create power-ready sites for advanced manufacturing and other development. She plans to commit $85 million to develop a downstate semiconductor chip design center and 4 quantum technology commercialization hubs across the state, along with $10 million for a new manufacturing modernization program. Additionally, $2 million would go toward biotechnology funding to support industrial hemp production. Hochul also proposed eliminating income taxes on tipped wages up to $25,000 per year for single filers earning up to $150,000 and joint filers earning up to $300,000. Beginning in the tax year 2026, tax filers would be entitled to reduce their state-adjusted gross income by the same amount authorized by the equivalent federal deduction. The Manufacturing Modernization Program would support the state's small and mid-sized manufacturers. This new program establishes a network of centers across the state focused on assisting small and mid-sized manufacturers in adopting new technology. The executive budget includes a second round of funding for the Power Up program, which will result in the development of electric capacity to create power-ready sites and attract new businesses to the state. Hochul wants to seed the fund with $300 million, spread over 3 years, which will facilitate the development of numerous sites. The Semiconductor Chip Design Center is being proposed for downstate, but is expected to complement the already robust chip manufacturing infrastructure upstate. The center will be a chip design facility serving as an incubator to startup firms, training chip designers, and connecting startups to the larger semiconductor sector throughout the state. The executive budget also includes $2 million in funding to support the state's future bioeconomy, including an industrial hemp pipeline. The funding would create a research and development consortium and pilot a greener economy for industrial hemp by constructing a processing facility and workforce training center. Among Hochul's other economic development proposals is providing $750 million to continue support for rural communities. That includes $400 million for the New York Works Economic Development Fund for jobs and infrastructure investment, $200 million for the Downtown Revitalization Initiative to create more communities to live, work, and raise a family, and NY Forward funding to help advance the renaissance of our smaller downtowns, and $150 million for the Regional Economic Development Council program. There would also be $75 million in Excelsior tax credits to fund high-value regional priority projects, which helps ensure that shovel-ready projects can be advanced in a timely fashion. Also in the executive budget is $60 million to support quantum technology hubs, which would serve as regional anchors for quantum innovation, prioritizing commercialization of new inventions, and real-world use cases, and $65 million for the Bolstering Biotech Initiative supporting the life sciences sector. She's also proposing investing $15 million in the dairy industry through the Dairy Modernization Grant Program, as well as a 5-year extension of the refundable investment tax credit through 2032. In addition, the executive budget includes funding increases for the Office of Cannabis Management to further develop and streamline processes, including a new $17 million capital appropriation for the development of an integrated case management and licensing and enforcement system. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. U.S. on verge of losing measles elimination status. It's been a year since the measles outbreak began in West Texas, and international health authorities say they will meet in April to determine if the United States has lost its measles-free designation. Experts fear the vaccine-preventable virus has regained a foothold and that the U.S. may soon follow Canada in losing the achievement of having eliminated it. The reevaluation is largely symbolic and hinges on whether a single measles chain has spread uninterrupted within the U.S. for at least 12 months. Public health scientists around the country are investigating whether the now-ended Texas outbreak is linked to active ones in Utah, Arizona, and South Carolina. But doctors and scientists say the U.S. and North America overall has a measles problem, regardless of the decision. It is really a question of semantics, said Dr. Jonathan Temte, a Wisconsin family physician who helped certify the U.S. was measles-free in 2000. The bottom line is the conditions are sufficient to allow this many cases to occur, and that gets back to de-emphasizing a safe and effective vaccine. Last year, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention confirmed 2,144 measles cases across 44 states, the most since 1991, and nearly 50 separate outbreaks. The problem has been years in the making as fewer kids get potential routine vaccines due to parental waivers, healthcare access issues, and rampant disinformation. More recently, Trump information health officials have questioned and sown doubt about the established safety of vaccines at an unprecedented level, while also defunding local efforts to improve vaccination rates. The most important thing that we can do is make sure the people who aren't vaccinated get vaccinated, said Jennifer Nuzzo, director of Brown University's Pandemic Center. We have not issued a clear enough message about that. The Department of Health and Human Services spokesperson said Thursday that Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has consistently emphasized vaccines as the best way to prevent measles, adding that the CDC is responding to outbreaks and working to increase vaccination rates. As of Thursday, the department said it doesn't have evidence that a single chain of measles has spread for a year. There is little room for error in trying to stop measles. The virus is one of the most contagious, infecting 9 out of every 10 unvaccinated people exposed. Community-level protection takes a 95% vaccination rate. The current rate nationally is 92.5, according to CDC data, but many communities fall far short of that. The patient in Texas' first known case developed the telltale rash on January 20th, 2025, according to State Health Department data. From there, the outbreak exploded. Officially, 762 people fell ill, most of them in rural Gaines County, and 2 children died. Many more got sick and were never diagnosed. 182 potential measles cases among children in Gaines County went unconfirmed in March 2025 alone, state officials said, a possible undercount of 44% in that county. Such data gaps are common, though, making it especially hard to track outbreaks. Many people living in communities where the virus is spreading face healthcare barriers and distrust the government. Contact tracing so many cases is also expensive, and behavioral scientist Noel Brewer, who chairs the U.S. committee that will finalize the data for international health officials, research shows a single measles case can cost public health departments tens of thousands of dollars. CDC data on measles is still among the best worldwide, Brewer said, but the U.S. has changed its investment in public health, so we're less able to do the case tracking that we used to do. Genetic sequencing can fill some gaps, but that's not always enough to say the outbreaks are connected. Genetically, the measles virus doesn't change as often as, say, flu. Within an outbreak, everybody is going to look the same, said Justin Lesser, a University of North Carolina disease researcher. The key question may then be how PAHO experts will navigate final data gaps, said Dr. Andrew Pavia, a Utah physician and longtime CDC consultant. My best guess is we will lose elimination status, Pavia said. The case for this not being continuous transmission is tenuous, and I think they are likely to err on the side of declaring it a loss of elimination status. Scientists have confirmed the same measles strain in Texas, New Mexico, Utah, Arizona, South Carolina, Canada, Mexico, and several other North American countries, said Sebastian O'Leal, a spokesperson for the Pan American Health Organization, which will make the final decision on U.S. measles elimination at an April 13th meeting. O'Leal said when there is a case of unknown origin in a country with ongoing local spread, the most conservative approach is to consider the case part of the existing national transmission. PAHO will review Mexico's measles-free status alongside the U.S., O'Leal said. That country's largest outbreak has roots in Texas. It started when an 8-year-old boy from Chihuahua State got sick after visiting family in Seminole, Texas. Since last February, 6,000 people have gotten sick in Mexico, and 21 have died in Chihuahua State. But under PAHO's definition of elimination, borders matter. If, for example, the chain of measles that started in the U.S. spread to Mexico and then returned to the U.S. anew, it would be considered a new strain, experts said. Still, many experts call that standard outdated. What's clear is that measles found ample fertile ground in the U.S. in 2025, infiltrating schools and daycares, churches, hospital waiting rooms, and a detention center. New Mexico logged 100 cases and 1 adult died. Kansas officials spent 7 months trying to control an outbreak that sickened nearly 90 people across 10 counties. Ohio confirmed 40 cases. Montana, North Dakota, and Wisconsin each had 36. Now, more than 800 people have gotten sick across Utah, Arizona, and South Carolina since late summer, with no end in sight. 2025 was the year of measles, Brewer said. Will 2026 be the year of rising or falling measles cases? Does it worsen or get better? No one knows the answer.
Thank you, Larry. You're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time is 9:19. On to the opinion and editorial pages, but before we do that, we will do the Today in History. On this date, in 1793, during the French Revolution, King Louis XVI, condemned for treason, was executed by guillotine. In 1861, Jefferson Davis of Mississippi, with a farewell speech, resigned his U.S. Senate seat after his state and others seceded from the Union. He would later be elected President of the Confederacy shortly before the Civil War began. In 1924, Russian revolutionary Vladimir Lenin died at age 53, setting off a bloody power struggle that would lead to the rise of Soviet dictator Joseph Stalin. In 1950, former State Department official Alger Hess accused of being part of a communist spy ring, was found guilty in New York of lying to a grand jury. Hess, who proclaimed his innocence, served less than 4 years in prison. In 1976, British Airways and Air France inaugurated scheduled passenger service on the supersonic Concorde jet. In 1977, on his first full day in office, President Jimmy Carter pardoned almost all Vietnam War draft evaders. And in 1985, Galaxy Airlines Flight 203 crashed in a field shortly after taking off from Reno, Nevada, killing all but one of the 71 people aboard. The survivor was a 17-year-old boy who was thrown clear of the aircraft and found conscious and still in his seat. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. The local Buffalo News editorial, a real mess. African American Cultural Center must assist in probe of financial irregularities. It's not a distinction many arts organizations want. According to Mary Hostler, Erie County's chief auditor, the African American Cultural Center takes the prize of being financially mismanaged. Hostler did not say this lightly. While a few minor issues can be expected in audits of cultural organizations that receive Erie County funding, the News' Deirdre Williams reports that the AACC was unable to provide bank statements, credit card statements, payroll documentation, accounting records, or financial statements to auditors. That's on top of 3 years of funding requests that did not comply with county guidelines and resulted in excess funds in the amount of $352,427 for 2022. What were these public funds used for? Nobody knows. How could they when the AACC was unable to produce even the most basic financial records? The AACC leadership, at first slow to respond, wisely returned County Comptroller Kevin Hardwick's calls and sat with him to discuss the problem. Hardwick knows that the organization went through some very tough times during the years that were audited and that the people in charge of the AACC may have no knowledge of what their predecessors did during that period. Hardwick is looking to help, not persecute, this organization, which has an important resource for its community in the Maastricht District and for the city as a whole. As it is, a state investigation looks inevitable. Erie County Executive Mark C. Poloncarz has said that we are deferring the matter to the New York State Attorney General's Office's Charities, Nonprofits, and Fundraisers Bureau for further review. Poloncarz is also doing the right thing. This could be a serious misuse of taxpayer funds with possible criminal activity. AACC spoke to auditors of pilfering by former staff and board members. But there also needs to be a parallel effort to move forward in a way that keeps the AACC viable as well as exposes and corrects financial mismanagement. While it's important to hold accountable those responsible for what could be criminal acts, that punishment should not extend to people trying to overcome recent history and keep the organization going. Its cultural offerings, the Paul Robeson Theater, the Dance and Drum Performance Company, educational enrichment programs, and the Pine Grill Jazz Reunion are too important to lose. A puzzling question is how the AACC got funding, as reported in the audit, in excess of 20% of its organizational operating budget, the limit stipulated by the county during those years. Copies of those requests, which should include documentation, ought to be on file and might shed light. It is therefore reassuring that the county provided no financial assistance to the center in 2025, and no money was allocated for it in the 2026 budget. Nothing more should come from government sources until this mess is, if not completely cleared up, at least understood and put firmly in the past. The AACC needs to show that it can provide complete transparency and full documentation going forward. It's no secret that the AACC has undergone periods of turmoil after the loss of longtime executive director Agnes M. Bain, who had led the organization for 41 years before her retirement and death in 2020. After that, several interim executive directors came and went, often in an atmosphere of angry accusation, as when one had fired administrator Tina Washington Abubecker publicly accused the board of directors of unprofessional and unethical conduct and called for community oversight. That was in 2021. Under current executive director Leah Angel Daniel, appointed in 2023, the AACC has seen some positive developments, including the completion of phase 1 of a major renovation project. But the damage from those earlier years will haunt the organization until these financial irregularities are fully cleared up. Daniel and her board must make that their primary mission.
Thank you, Larry. The editorial cartoons, the first one's by Adam Zeigler of the Buffalo News, and it's a 2-panel, and it is titled Billsy Goats, as in Buffalo Bills. Billsy Goats. And the panel on the left shows a billy goat trying to get up the hill, which is labeled Rocky Mountains, and the billy goat is wearing a cape with the number 17 on it. But yet a rock has fallen and is holding the cape from keeping the billy goat from moving uphill. And that one is titled Caped Goat. And the second part of the cartoon is another billy goat, and he's got a coach helmet, hat, and mouthpiece on, and all that. And I suppose this is supposed to be Sean McDermott. And there's a hand coming in from the side with a piece of paper that said, "Coach, you're fired." And that is titled Scape, as in scapegoat. The second cartoon is by Steve Kelly of Creator Syndicate, and it shows a man, I believe this is James Carville, tall, bald, cleft chin, and he is talking to a Democrat. And James says, "The 3 stupidest words in the history of the English language are defund the police." And the Democrat says, "Stupider than elect Harris Walz." Larry?
Thank you, Linda. The Everybody's Column. U.S. risks destroying longtime NATO alliances. Since the U.S. military raid on Caracas that captured Venezuelan strongman Nicolas Maduro, President Trump has threatened to use force elsewhere in the Western Hemisphere and redoubled his demand for a U.S. takeover of Greenland. While the legalities of this takeover are still being debated, the potentially unlawful acquisition of a NATO ally's territory bears a striking resemblance to Putin's war to take over Ukraine. While the president tends to ask forgiveness rather than permission, Congress should not remain silent when he acts outside of rules of law, making up his own as he goes along. Being the bull in a china shop is no way to win over allies and can only place us in a difficult position with our adversaries, who now see us as an easier target instead of a unified front. This from Charles D. Carter of Akron.
Thank you, Larry. Oxford Pennant should not denigrate downtown. Oxford Pennant is moving from downtown Main Street to Larkinville. Good for them. Company officials claim the area they are now in is desolate and dangerous, with no other businesses located near them and numerous car break-ins in their parking lot. I'm just wondering if anyone bothered to check the facts. I live in the Trico building. There are over 200 apartments here, almost fully occupied, 1 block from Oxford. In their current block, there is St. Louis Catholic Church, an art gallery, and the Church of Scientology building. None of them are closed. 1 block north, there are numerous vibrant businesses. Across the street is a Catholic headquarters, an insurance company, and a parking lot, again, all currently open. As to the car break-ins, I've lived here 18 months and have never seen a police car at Oxford. This neighborhood is just great to live in, very walkable and very safe. If they want or /need to move, that's great for them. They just shouldn't blame it on the neighborhood. It's written by Dan Loncacto from Buffalo. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Health insurance no longer makes sense. We've crossed the line on health insurance. It no longer makes sense to pay for it. If you stop paying, the average household will save $20,000 per year. If you need a doctor, you can pay out of pocket. Most doctors charge next to nothing for the uninsured. If you have an event that costs a large amount, you can set up a payment plan that's interest-free, and you can dictate the terms. Medical debt does not count against your credit score. The math now says don't buy insurance. It sounds crazy, but the market now dictates it. Be smart with your money. Stop letting insurance companies and politicians convince you otherwise. This from William Moore of Buffalo.
Thank you, Larry. You're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time is 9:30. Some opinion columns. This one is Another Voice, and it's about energy, and it's written by Reverend Merrill Showers, who is a member of the Interfaith Climate Justice Community. Fossil fuel leaders are hypocritical. Recently in this space, national fuel leaders and other supporters of burning more fossil fuels have pushed the idea that New York State is moving too fast to get off fossil fuels. Even the Buffalo-Niagara Partnership has weighed in to call for the governor to slow down or change the climate laws passed by New York's government. For many years now, I have heard that business/industry needs the long view in order to make changes, so government can't make changes or laws that don't give them time to adjust and plan. In 1954, the American Petroleum Institute wrote an article titled, "The Petroleum Industry Sponsors Air Pollution Research," which suggested that smog was the product of a reaction of ozone and gases that evaporate from cracked gasoline. In 1959, Shell Oil wrote an article, The Earth's Carbon Cycle, which affirmed that the burning of fossil fuels released 2.5 billion tons of carbon each year at the time and might conceivably change the climate. Exxon scientists in 1979 created a study that said that burning fossil fuels will cause dramatic environmental effects in the coming decades. The potential problem is great and urgent. Some of the fossil fuels' own leaders have known for at least 47 years that the burning of their product, as well as coal, have been doing damage to our environment, causing health problems, polluting our waterways, and causing whole species to go extinct. At the federal level, military and intelligence leaders have also been sounding the alarm since at least 1990. The fossil fuel industry, including National Fuel and the Buffalo-Niagara Partnership, want us to slow down. New York needs to join the other climate deniers and say, there is no problem, we can take our time. People aren't dying from pollution. The security of our nation is not being harmed by climate change. If the fossil fuel industries had taken their own warning of a problem 40 plus years ago, they would be the ones making solar panels and wind turbines. They would be the ones owning the solar and wind farms, and they may have even made better options. But no, they have chosen to pretend that the reality they themselves discovered doesn't exist. Advice from big industry? Wait, we got time. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. From Susan Estrich. Trump is threatening to militarize streets with Insurrection Act. President Trump made the threat. Where else on Truth Social? If the corrupt politicians of Minnesota don't obey the law and stop the professional agitators and insurrectionists from attacking the patriots of the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, who are only trying to do their job, I will institute the, all capitals, Insurrection Act, which many presidents have done before me, and quickly put an end to the travesty that is taking place in this once great state. The Insurrection Act was signed into law in 1807. It was last invoked by former President George H.W. Bush in 1992 at the request of California's governor to deal with riots in Los Angeles. Unlike deploying the National Guard, which Trump has also done, the Insurrection Act allows armed forces to carry out law enforcement functions for which they may or may not be trained. You would have the military protecting not only federal buildings, but immigration enforcement efforts, whatever form they might take. Talk about turning the streets and parking lots into battleground standoffs. For what? There is, of course, no insurrection, much less one led by professional agitators. ICE's job is not to kill anyone. If anyone is to blame for the overheated situation in Minnesota, it is Donald Trump, who thrives on it. Unlike other presidents who might see this as a time to bring the nation together, to express grief at a tragic loss, to vow to do better, This president does just the opposite. He doesn't want to turn the temperature down. He wants to turn it up. He investigates the widow instead of the officer. The pot boils. Prosecutors quit. So what? He'll send more agents in. And if that inflames things further, then he can invoke the act, which is what he really wants to do and what he views as a means to throttle a city and state he perceives as his opponent. That's how he plays, and that's how his team plays. And if that's not how you play, then you shouldn't have voted for him, because he shows no sign of changing. Trumpism has never been about unity. It's always been us against them. Only now it is more so. So what does everyone else do? Of course, they'll sue. The state attorney general has already brought suit regarding the ICE deployment and told the press that if Donald Trump invokes the Insurrection Act, he's prepared to challenge that in court. According to the Brennan Center for Justice, there are 3 ways the president can invoke the act. The first is at the request of a state legislature or governor facing an insurrection, which is not the path here. The second is when unlawful obstructions, combinations, or assemblages or rebellion make it impractical to enforce federal laws, a much more likely path. And the third is to suppress an insurrection that hinders the execution of the laws, or opposes or obstructs the execution of the laws of the United States, or impedes the course of justice under those laws. You don't have to be Stephen Miller in the White House to knit together the Insurrection Act with the enforcement of immigration/deportation law into an unholy manifesto, or to think that they already have. Republican leaders are reportedly asking Trump to exercise restraint and not further inflame the situation by sending in the military. Are there enough Republican leaders to go to him and actually say something that almost sounds like no? And will he listen to them and care? Our military was not trained to march in Minneapolis. This is not what they signed up for. We should not send them there. Enough is enough.
Thank you, Larry. Some business and financial news. U.S. threats may spur EU, that's European Union, to activate trade bazooka. President Trump's latest tariff threats over Greenland and Europe's potential countermeasures could result in significantly higher import prices that could weaken both economies. Neither side appears to be messing around. In an extraordinary escalation of Trump's pursuit of Greenland, the president announced Saturday that he would impose 10% tariffs on February 1st on goods from Denmark, Finland, France, Germany, the Netherlands, Norway, Sweden, and the United Kingdom. They would increase to 25% if an agreement is not reached by June 1st. That triggered an emergency meeting of European countries' representatives Sunday, and French President Emmanuel Macron reportedly asked the European Union to activate its so-called anti-coercion instrument, colloquially known as a trade bazooka. The trade bazooka would block some of America's access to EU markets or impose export controls along with a broader list of potential countermeasures. That trade defense was made with countries like China in mind, not allies like the United States, noted Erica York, Vice President of Federal Tax Policy at the Tax Foundation. The bloc would also consider imposing 93 billion euros of previously announced retaliatory tariffs against the United States that were delayed when the EU and the U.S. reached a tentative trade truce in July last year, according to Reuters. At least judging from their first reactions, some European leaders are willing to play hardball, said Karsten Bresky, global head of macro at ING, in a note to clients Sunday. For businesses, the developments over the weekend mean another period of uncertainty around investments in and exports to the United States. That business uncertainty led many U.S. companies to pause hiring in 2025 as they sought clarity during Trump's unprecedented string of on-again, off-again tariff actions. Bresky said he expects the increased tariffs to shave a 0.25 percentage point off European gross domestic product this year. Europe is still dependent on the U.S. in many ways, both from an economic and security point of view, he noted. Using its trade bazooka, which could suspend U.S. company licenses or tax U.S. services, could take the EU months to implement, warned Dan Hamilton, a senior non-fellow resident at the Brookings Institution. Trump's latest threats risk shredding the trade agreements the United States concluded with both the UK and the EU last summer and further straining relations with America's closest allies, Hamilton said. The EU implemented its trade agreement with the Trump administration last summer, but it hasn't yet signed the accord. Although some leaders, including Germany's Chancellor Friedrich Merz, supported the deal because it avoided a significant tax escalation on both sides, many European leaders decried the agreement when it was announced, and Trump's latest salvo puts the deal in doubt. The European Parliament Manfred Weber said on X that given Donald Trump's threats regarding Greenland, approval is not possible at this stage for a U.S.-EU trade agreement. These actions really do represent an end to the credibility of American commitments. That's going to have adverse effects on the world economy, said Stephen Durloff, a professor at the University of Chicago's Harris School of Public Policy. Trump may have allowed for a loophole, however. Trump's tariffs are directed at a select few member nations, not the entire EU. So the 8 countries could reroute trade within the EU's free trade bloc to avoid those tariffs. There's no border between Spain, Italy, Germany, and France. Anybody can ship a good through another country quite easily if we try and tariff individualized states, warned Joseph Frody, a New York University Stern School of Business professor. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Flim-flammers use AI to make fake websites trick shoppers. Melia & Company appears to be a small family-run business. The sweaters on its website feature a photo of a woman hand-knitting a Christmas design. The caption says that after decades of creating knitwear that tells quiet stories of care and beauty, she is closing her little studio and the pieces on offer are her last. The website of Olivia Westwood Boutique also spotlights a charming backstory. The About Us section states that twin sisters run the shop their mother opened in 1972 and share her commitment to a business rooted in family, community, and women uplifting women. Shoppers could take advantage of a sale honoring the boutique's late founder on what would have been her 95th birthday. But neither store is what it appears. Both display many of the same Icelandic, Nordic, and festive sweaters with identical stock images. Their website domains were registered in China in November, ahead of the holiday shopping season. Negative reviews of both stores proliferate on consumer review websites such as Trustpilot, where users report receiving shoddy goods that were difficult to return. Melia & Company did not return a request for more information about the owners. A close look at a pop-up ad describing Nola Renee, a 72-year-old Swedish knitter who is supposedly hanging up her knitting needles, reveals the word advertorial at the top and at the bottom. A disclaimer saying the people in the photos are models. At least 3 other shopping sites also sell the sweaters lovingly hand-knitted in small batches. Olivia Westwood Boutique responded to an email inquiry about where it was based and who owned the business by saying it was an online boutique working with trusted global fulfillment partners to serve our customers. Some vendors and fraudsters have taken advantage of AI-generated images to create websites that have an aura of artisan authenticity or that point to a long history as a trusted small retailer, said Seth Ketron, a marketing professor at the University of St. Thomas in St. Paul, Minnesota. It's getting more and more common, Ketron said. If you're not careful or you're really paying close attention, you don't really even know what to look for or what AI photos look like. It's easy to kind of just gloss over or miss that it's probably not real. Including fake hardship stories along with ads is one technique online scammers use to draw in potential buyers. Common ploys include announcing a going out of business sale or a sale to honor a late son, daughter, or grandmother. Morit Keterkarioglu, a computer science professor at Virginia Tech, recommends checking reviews before making any online purchases from smaller businesses. Customer reviews aren't always legitimate either, but they can be good to check as part of your research. Sites like the Better Business Bureau and UK-based Trustpilot are two places to look, as well as marketplaces like Amazon and Etsy if the brand has a presence there. If the small business claims to be there for 30 years, they should have reviews about them, maybe from at least a couple of years back, Keterkarioglu said. Another quick check is looking up where a website is registered. Keterkarioglu recommends doing a domain name search through the nonprofit Internet Corporation for assigned names and numbers. GoDaddy and Whois are other options. If a company claims to be in one country but is registered in another one, that is a red flag. If the site is registered in the past few months but is marketed as belonging to an established small business, that's another. No matter how cautious you are, it is still possible to get scammed. If something seems off, it's better to hold off making a purchase than to make one you might regret, experts say. As AI gets better, then scammers or people doing business dubiously are going to have an easier time duping people because things are going to look more and more convincing, Ketron said. Online shopping scams are not unusual. About 36% of Americans failed to receive refunds after purchasing an item online that they said never arrived or turned out to be counterfeit, according to a Pew Research Center survey. Faster and more sophisticated digital tools are making it even harder for consumers to spot if they are seeing it as too good to be true.
Thank you, Larry. As part of our newspaper reading, we now present the day's death listings. If you need further information on any of these names, call us at 716-821-5555. That's 716-821-5555. Abraham Michael J. Anderson Trudy Perry. Bergio Mark. DiBartolomeo Philomena née Grandilli. Dickerson Lorelei née Dirion. Farrell Tomasulo Cheryl née Farrell. Glynn Mary Gallagher. Groff Delnora May née Delaire. Hartman Mark Stephen. Herky Joanne M. Korn Thomas C. Kunz Sandra. Lataki Walter. Maniszewski Thomas L. Meslanka Henrietta S. McCarthy Jean M. née Weber. Miller Kenneth R. Miller Wyma. O'Keefe William Michael. Scarpello Joseph N. Simonson Randall Randy. Stelmach Reverend Jerome J. Father Jerry. Wedgwood Margaret. White Reginald. Warnecki Christine Ann. And let's see, international obituary. Valentino Garavani, the jet-set Italian designer whose high glamour gowns, often in his trademark shade of Valentino red, were fashion show staples for nearly half a century, died Monday. He was 93. If you need further information on any of these names, call us at 716-821-5555. That's 716-821-5555. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Royal Stars. Happy birthday for Wednesday, January 21st, 2026. You are free-spirited, private, and idealistic. You act on your instincts. This year, exciting changes will bring you increased personal freedom. Stay flexible. Aries, 4 stars. A conversation with someone younger might feel invigorating and stimulating today. Certainly, this is an excellent day to think about future goals. Tonight, solitude. Taurus, 4 stars. Today, you feel unusually clear about your objectives and your life. Direction, even though that might change in a day or two. Tonight, friendships. Gemini, 4 stars. This is a fantastic day to study or use your mind for any intellectual pursuit, especially in academia, medicine, the law, or something to do with publishing and the media. Tonight, you're high viz. Cancer, 4 stars. You're a great saver. You're thrifty with your money and never casual about your finances. Tonight, explore and learn. Leo, 4 stars. This is a cards on the table day. Discussions with partners, spouses, and close friends will be clear-headed and direct. Tonight, check your finances. Virgo, 3 stars. This is an excellent day to be hands-on with any job that you do. Roll up your sleeves and get busy. It's also a good day to talk about what you want. Tonight, listen. Libra, 4 stars. Respect your creative ideas today. You're on a roll. Discussions with kids will be upbeat and worthwhile. Tonight, work. Scorpio, 3 stars. Discussions with your kids will be lively and direct today. All parties will speak up to express their views. Tonight, play. Sagittarius, 4 stars. Today, you can sell sawdust to carpenters. That's how convincing you will be. It's a wonderful day for sales, marketing, teaching, acting, and writing. Tonight, relax. Capricorn, 3 stars. Respect your money-making ideas today. They might be worthwhile. This is an excellent day to initiate something, especially related to commerce. Tonight, travel and talk. Aquarius, 4 stars. While the Sun and Mercury lined up in your sign today, you will be chatty and keen to talk to everyone. You'll want to share your views with everyone who will listen. Tonight, check your money. Pisces, this can be a revealing day for you because you might be more interested in examining yourself and becoming more aware of your position on certain topics or subjects. Tonight, you're in charge.
Thank you, Larry. Hints from Heloise. Soaking out stains in clothes with bleach. Dear Heloise, I've been having issues with my underwear getting stained, and I've tried bleach to get stains out. The bleach would damage the electricity and render them too loose to wear, so from now on I just use a smaller bowl and only soak the stained portion. And that's from Johnny B. A very long trip to Earth. Dear Heloise, in response to Jerry in Nebraska, who saw a UFO, impossible. The closest star is Alpha Centauri, which is about 4 light years away. Traveling at a decent speed means a trip of a few hundred years. How can anyone make such a trip without food, water, or sunshine? From Anthony. Anthony, I don't know if there's life out there in space. If there is, who can say whether or not they've been visiting us? Just keep an open mind. The universe is full of strange things. Heloise. Life-saving whistle. Dear Heloise, when I was growing up, our family camped all the time. During one trip in a very remote forest in Canada, I was 5 years old, and my cousin and I got lost in the woods. Thankfully, we were found safe that same day, but my father immediately went to a store and bought whistles for all of us kids. We were required to wear them at all times from then on when camping. When I hear stories on the news of lost children in these situations, I always want to tell the adults to use this simple life-saving hint. Teach the kids to stay in one place and use the whistle. I pray that this will help save lives. From LJN. And Heloise responds, LJN, this is a great idea. Sometimes the simplest idea can save a life. When I was a kid, I went to a camp near the Great Lakes that had a buddy system. If you went into the woods or the lake, they blew a whistle and shouted, buddy, every 15 minutes. You had to grab your buddy's hand and hold it up in the air. No one drowned or got lost. Best of all, it taught us to look out for other people. Shower safety. Dear Heloise, for those who are remodeling or building their home, I suggest incorporating the traditional small shower stall into your plans. The new larger open designs are spectacular, but they can also be more dangerous for elders who experience dizziness or balance issues. Having a nearby wall to lean on or a bar close by to grab onto can be a lifesaver. Thanks from an 81-year-old dizzy elder. From Jim. Jim, there are also shower stools that people can sit down and shower. They can be bought online or from a medical supply store. And that's from Heloise. Butterbell. Dear Heloise, I have kept my butter in a Butterbell, a French butter crock, for years. I love having soft butter any time that I want. All I have to do is replace the water several times a week. From Sandy R. And the news in large print. Dear Heloise, in response to the gentleman who wants a physical newspaper and is afraid to read one on his computer because he might spill his coffee on it, If he has a newer TV and a computer with HDMI connections, he can connect his computer to the TV and view the computer screen on the TV. From Maryland. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. From the Political Notebook. Letlow aims to oust Cassidy from Senate. Baton Rouge. Fresh off an endorsement from President Trump, Representative Julie Letlow of Louisiana is launching a U.S. Senate bid against fellow Republican and second-term Senator Bill Cassidy. Letlow made her announcement Tuesday during a breakfast hosted by the Greater Baton Rouge Business Report. It's an honor to share with you, after the endorsement and encouragement from the President of the United States, that today I will officially be announcing my candidacy for the U.S. Senate, she said, according to audio of the event obtained by the Associated Press. The development further complicates Cassidy's difficult re-election path and effectively marks the final failure of his attempts to placate Trump after voting in 2021 to convict him on impeachment charges stemming from his efforts to overturn the 2020 election. Cassidy confirmed Tuesday on X that he'd heard from Letlow personally. Congressman Letlow called me this morning to say she was running, he wrote. She said she respected me and that I had done a good job. I will continue to do a good job when I win re-election. Louisiana holds party primaries for federal offices on May 16th. And Whitmer says female president is possible. Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer says she believes the U.S. is ready to have a female president, pushing back on doubt cast by former First Lady Michelle Obama. Whitmer, a Democrat whom some see as a potential candidate for president in 2021, was asked by National Public Radio's Steve Inskeep about comments Obama made in November when she said in part, the country has a lot of growing up to do. I love Michelle Obama, so the last thing I want to do is disagree with her, Whitmer replied. But you know, I think America is ready for a woman president. The question comes down to a choice between two people. Inskeep posted on social media Tuesday a 30-minute video recording of his interview with Whitmer, which took place Thursday at the Detroit Auto Show. Whitmer noted that despite Kamala Harris's loss to Trump in 2024, female candidates won multiple statewide races in both 2024 and 25. She mentions Michigan's new U.S. Senator Alyssa Slotkin, new Virginia Governor Abigail Spanberger, and new New Jersey Governor Nikki Sherrill. We saw women win up and down the ballot in hard, important states to win, Whitmer said. For whatever reason, we have not had a woman president yet. I think we will at some point in the near future.
Thank you, Larry. You're listening to a reading of articles from the Buffalo News for Wednesday, January 21st. No? Yes. On your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. We'll return for more readings after the short break. Your readers today are
Larry Beaton
and Linda Ranella.
If you're listening to this publication online, you're probably using our website, a podcast player like Spotify or iTunes, a streaming service like Siro, or a smart speaker. Did you know that we now have a dedicated app that can be downloaded to any mobile device, like a smartphone or tablet, for free? App users can conveniently access our live stream and any episode of our podcast easier than ever. To download the app, just type NFRRS in the search window in the Apple App Store or in the Google Play Store. Contact us anytime if you have any questions by calling 716-821-5555, extension 5. Thank you.
We'll continue now with our reading of articles from today's Buffalo News. Your readers are
Linda Ranella.
and Larry Beenan.
On to some local news, local and regional news. First one. Child abuse case hinges on whether video is deepfake. 3 years ago, an FBI investigation into child sexual abuse material led agents to a central New York suspect who admitted he hacked into an Erie County couple's home security camera. He discovered video depicting a man sexually abusing a teenage girl, he told authorities, allegations that led an Erie County family court judge to conclude the man in the video and his then-girlfriend, the girl's mother, committed child abuse. But the portion of the video depicting the abuse may not be real, according to the Center for Integrity and Forensic Sciences, an organization seeking to improve the reliability of scientific evidence in courts across the country. The video is at the center of a case being decided by the state's highest court. Among other legal issues, judges on the Court of Appeals are being asked to decide whether the authorities sufficiently authenticated the videos in court. The question is whether or not the sexual abuse is a deep fake. Judge Jenny Rivera said during oral arguments in the case on January 7th. The videos are potentially accurate, but easily could be fake given how the videos were obtained and how easy it is to alter video, said Carolyn Nabicek, attorney for the Center for Integrity and Forensic Sciences, which filed a friend of the court brief in the case. There's also no way for any authentication to be done now because the family court judge ordered the video destroyed. Webcam hacking. On December 15, 2022, Erie County Family Court Judge Sharon Lavallo determined both adults abused the girl and derivatively abused a boy in the household, according to court documents. Lavallo ordered the teenage girl and her brother removed from their mother's custody, and the boy remains in foster care. Derivative abuse happens when the actions against one child demonstrate impaired judgment on the part of a parent, which creates substantial risk of harm to other children in that person's care. The mother and her then-boyfriend, identified in court documents by their first names and last initials, argued that authorities failed to establish the authenticity of the videos, which were the primary evidence against them. The Buffalo News is not publishing the adults' partial names in order to protect the identity of the children involved in the case. Both the mother and her then-boyfriend appealed their own cases, which led to 2 separate Fourth Department rulings that authorities sufficiently authenticated the videos during the family court proceedings. But both appellate rulings, which were done by different panels of judges, included dissents. The appellate panels both affirmed the family court finding that the mother abused her daughter and derivatively abused her son because the evidence permitted to the court to infer that the mother knew or should have known about the abuse and did nothing to prevent it. The FBI obtained the video files in January 2022 during an investigation regarding possession of child sexual abuse material of Brian D. White of Cicero, according to court documents. The videos were recorded in the mother's home in Erie County in May, June, and July 2019. White told the FBI he had been hacking into the security web cameras and downloaded videos onto his own computer, according to July 2024 ruling by the Appellate Division, 4th Department. The FBI copied the videos from White's computer onto a DVD, which became evidence in the family court case. The location depicted in the videos and items in the location appeared similar to what police saw when they went to the family's home. Identification cards of the residents who lived there corresponded to the people in the videos, investigators concluded. The FBI agent testified he did not make any observations that led him to believe that the video footage had been tampered with or altered in any way, the Fourth Department panel wrote. But attorneys for the mother have argued the FBI agent who testified did not have the appropriate level of expertise to make that determination. According to the Fourth Department ruling, the girl denied she was abused. Her mother identified her daughter and her then-boyfriend in screenshots taken from the videos. The man accused of abusing the girl also didn't dispute he was the person shown in the video. He also didn't dispute that the acts shown in the videos constitute sex offenses, according to the appellate ruling. Video destroyed. The mother did not testify at the family court proceeding and refused to view the videos, according to one of the appellate rulings. The mother was represented at the Court of Appeals by attorneys for the Center for Family Representation. Attorney Emily Wall told the Court of Appeals judges the videos in question would have been authenticated by an expert, which she argued wasn't done here. The FBI agent who testified about the video was not deemed an expert witness and was not shown to have any specialized training, Wall said. White could have been called as a witness to authenticate the video, attorneys said, but he wasn't. The video of the abuse used in family court case was ordered destroyed by Lavallo to protect the victim, who would have been victimized every time the video was watched, Erie County Department of Social Services attorney Madison Ozella told the Court of Appeals during oral arguments. 7 Court of Appeals judges questioned that decision. Amicus, or friend of the court, briefs were filed in the case by several groups, including Just Making a Change for Families, an organization that describes itself as a nonprofit working to dismantle the family policing system while investing in community support that keeps families together. Another brief was filed by Brooklyn Defender Services. Attorneys for both groups declined to comment. It does not appear that the man in the video faced any criminal charges. White, the Central New York man whose hacking led to the Erie County case, was sentenced in 2023 for the conviction of possessing child sexual abuse material to 78 months in prison, to be followed by 15 years of supervised release, according to federal court documents. Decisions from the Court of Appeals are issued roughly a month after the judges listen to arguments. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Busing problems, remedies debated for Buffalo schools. The stories were familiar, so was frustration. A kindergarten special education teacher said the buses carrying her students with autism arrive an hour late every day, causing them to miss out on occupational therapy, physical therapy, and speech services mandated by the Individualized Education Programs, IEPs. It doesn't make any sense, the teacher said. This isn't working. An education coordinator from Jericho Road Community Health Center said 2 students for whom she advocates, a nonverbal autistic student and an English language learner, were transferred to New Buffalo schools mid-year to learn in smaller classes. On the first day of their transfer, each student was transported to the wrong place, not their old school or the new school. The parents of the English language learner received word of their child's plight only after the intended school destination marked the student absent, the coordinator said, and the student spent 90 minutes on the bus while the issue was sorted out. Parents are afraid to speak out, the coordinator said. They don't want to ruffle any feathers. The mother of a different special needs student cited the behavior of a first student bus driver who advised the parents to take their child to school themselves. The parents said the driver actively avoided picking up their child, sometimes stopping the bus behind the bushes or driving away as the mother rushed after the vehicle. My kid shouldn't be crying from a bus, the mother said. These were some of the anecdotes volleyed primarily toward First Student Incorporated, which operates 470 bus routes in the mornings and afternoons for Buffalo's pre-kindergarten through 8th grade students, mostly from Buffalo Public Schools, but also charter and some private schools. Generally, in the $460 million contract binding First Student with Buffalo Schools, the transportation provider handles the vehicles, hires drivers, and oversees 4 terminals, while Buffalo Schools determines the routing of the buses and hires bus aides. Both parties responded to complaints, of which they absorbed many last week. Andrew Rydell and Megan Myers from First Student, Louis Petrucci from Buffalo Public Schools, and Gary Bennett and Brian Patterson from the Niagara Frontier Transportation Authority engaged in a forum hosted by the Buffalo Parent-Teacher Organization at Frank E. Meriwether Jr. Library. Ron Giza, a leader of the American Transit Union 1342 representing NFTA drivers, also participated. The biannual transportation forum served an opportunity for about 25 people, a collection of parents, teachers, and current and former school board members, to understand how the system works and what's being done to improve it and to voice specific concerns. I want some accountability, said Louis Mookie Hawkins, a new school board member. First Student status. Handel Rydell, Senior Location Manager for First Student, said the transportation provider is in better shape this winter than it was in the beginning of the school year, when it had 475 drivers for 470 routes plus 15 out-of-town drivers the international company lodged in hotels to help manage the driver shortage. It was definitely a rough start, to say the least, Weidel said. He added, however, that First Student has since added 15 drivers, with more than 20 currently going through the process to attain a commercial driver's license, which gives the company greater cushion when drivers call off due to illness or other reasons. According to data gathered by First Student, the chance that a Buffalo school bus will be on time if there are enough bus drivers to cover all of the routes is 81%. Due to Buffalo School's 3-bell schedule implemented in fall in 2023, an attempt to circumvent the driver shortage, the odds of lateness increase with each successive run. Buses with the first pickup in the morning and the first drop-off in the afternoon are on time at a 95% rate, while schools operating in the second tier of dismissals receive an on-time bus at 88%. Third-tier schools, typically handled by bus drivers who completed the first runs, are on time about 75% of the time. When routes are uncovered, Weidel said First Student will pull mechanics and dispatchers to cover as long as they're certified. We turn over every stone we can to put a qualified driver, a safe driver, in that seat to service Buffalo, he said. Meyer acknowledged struggles with special education buses, but noted other reasons, such as students' behavioral issues, why a bus may be late. We all need to work collectively better. Everyone is feeling the effects of all this, Meyer said, but generally we really do everything that we can to make sure the kids are on time. 10-day rule. Most of the forum's audience seemed surprised by an answer to a complaint regarding why buses might no longer pick up a student. Ed Speidel, a parent leader of the District Parent Council Coordinating Council, said his son missed around 2 weeks of school because of illness, and when he was healthy enough to attend, his usual bus did not stop to pick him up. You decided to kick him off the bus and not ever pick him up again because he was out sick for 8 days, Speidel said. Why would you guys eliminate his bus without calling the school? Petrucci, the district chief operating officer for the time being, said many district students, for a variety of reasons, stopped showing up for buses. If that continues for 10 days, they are no longer picked up. The policy is in place to shorten routes and produce quicker turnaround times, but the district is working on a voluntary opt-out approach using a form letter. If you're not planning to use transportation, please let us know, Petrucci said. Jennifer Macusi, whose 9-year run on the Buffalo School Board just ended, attended the meeting to advocate for a student who had been hospitalized due to illness and, due to the duration of illness, lost access to a bus. She urged the district to publicize the 10-day rule. As of right now, that's not even a message, she said. Athletics troubles. South Park High School varsity and junior varsity basketball teams were the only Buffalo Public Schools slated to play in the Greg D. Martin Christmas Tournament, held each year at Iroquois High School in Alma, about 25 minutes outside the city and not accessible by Metrobus. But South Park's teams never played their semi-final game against St. Mary's at Iroquois on December 26 because a bus driver never arrived to transport them. It was due to a lack of communication by First Student, which Rydell apologized for Wednesday. The Sparks had to forfeit Friday's game, and while they were successfully transported to Saturday's consolation game, the disappointment lingered with Hawkins. Those kids had the opportunity robbed, the new board member said. The Christmas tournament qualm pivoted to a larger conversation of equity and access in Buffalo athletics. First Students Rydell said about 7 or 8 buses each day are allotted to after-school sports, down from 15 to 20 pre-COVID, with priority determined by the district's athletic department. Most of the district's high school athletes have a pass to access NFTA buses to travel to games in the city, but modified and unified teams as well as suburban away venues present a greater challenge, often limiting participation to students whose parents can transport them. Tracking tool is a possibility. If there's hope on this horizon, it's from an internal development that could aid in real-time information sharing and possibly communication regarding daily transportation issues. Buffalo Superintendent Pascal Mubonga asked the district's Transportation Department and Office of Shared Accountability to develop a tracking tool that would inform building administrators why and how long a bus would be delayed. Petrucci hoped the tool would also double as a communication venue for parents to learn about a bus location as well. That's desirable information, Petrucci said, citing how one district parent earlier this school year stood outside her child's school for a full week to track the departure and arrival of buses. Petrucci embraced the parents' data, creating a presentation for the district's cabinet to show a weeks-long snapshot of busing at that specific school. It's uncertain if Petrucci will see the tracking tool to fruition, however, because as Buffalo Mayor Sean Ryan on Friday appointed him as Commissioner of Permits and Inspections, a role for which Petrucci previously served as deputy. Regardless who was Buffalo Schools' chief operating officer, Petrucci urged parents to reach out regarding bus troubles by specifying the relevant date and bus number. When people give us that information, Petrucci said, we can make the adjustment.
Thank you, Larry. 2 articles. Land Conservancy adds more property to link Western New York Wildway. Piece by piece, the Western New York Land Conservancy is saving properties from potential development and protecting wildlife in the process. The Land Trust recently conserved an 86-acre property in Holland. The forested land is named the Bush property for its former owner, who donated it to the Land Conservancy as part of their will. While saving the Bush property on its own is considered a win for the Land Conservancy, this property is in particular is special because of its location in the Western New York Wildway, Land Conservancy officials said. We've made tremendous progress with our Western New York Wildway, said Marissa Riggi, Executive Director of the Land Conservancy, in a prepared statement. They represent a hopeful step toward creating the corridors of connectivity that wildlife requires to survive. The Wildway would consist of linked areas protected from development that together form corridors to allow wildlife to move freely. Those links would connect large, already protected environments like Allegheny State Park, Letchworth State Park, and the Iroquois National Wildlife Refuge by preserving key stretches of land in between. Without protecting the linkages in the Wildway, wildlife could become trapped on ever smaller islands of land surrounded by development, according to the Land Conservancy. The Bush property is one of 4 linkage properties the Land Conservancy has received in recent years. The other 3 include the 26-acre Wales Ravine, 22-acre Robert G. Kaiser Preserve in Concord, and a 22-acre Paul property also in Concord. In total, the 155 acres are protected from development forever. Other recently protected areas include 225-acre Floating Fen Preserve near Fredonia, which was opened last year and is next to the 168-acre College Lodge Forest. Both are publicly accessible through trail systems that take visitors to rare and biodiverse habitats. The Land Trust also protected another 6 properties in 2025, totaling 732 acres around the Black Creek watershed, mostly in Allegheny County. Also in 2025, the Land Conservancy opened the 38.3-acre Jim and Edna Brattle Preserve on Grand Island, bringing the amount of protected land on the island to 319 acres. In total, the Land Conservancy has protected more than 8,400 acres of land throughout Western New York since 1991. The Land Trust has plans to protect another 8,000 acres, according to Riggi. And the second article, man gets prison for selling drugs that killed toddler. A Lockport man who sold fentanyl that unintentionally killed a toddler kept dealing drugs afterward, drawing a rebuke from a federal judge who sentenced him Tuesday to 12 2/3 years in prison. But a request for leniency from the toddler's grandmother kept Javanette Holloway, 24, from a longer sentence. I can't get past the fact you kept dealing, U.S. District Judge Lawrence Villardo said during the sentencing hearing. The judge, however, said he shaved 6 months from the maximum prison term he could have imposed under a plea agreement because the grandmother asked for mercy and I owed it to her. Holloway previously admitted to conspiracy to possess with intent to distribute and to distribute Actyl fentanyl and fentanyl. Calling fentanyl the worst of the worst for killing people and destroying families, Villardo said Holloway knew the lethal consequences of his drug dealing, even if he did not mean to kill the toddler. Prosecutors said Holloway sold heroin and fentanyl to a Lockport couple in the form of blue hydrocodone pills that caused the death of the couple's 2-year-old son in December 2022. The instrument used to crush the pills was left on a nightstand, and the residue was ingested by the toddler. Police called to the couple's apartment found the child unresponsive in the bedroom. The child was taken to the Eastern Niagara Hospital in Lockport, where he was pronounced dead. Prosecutors said pills found in the bedroom were tested and found to contain fentanyl. Nobody suggests Holloway intended to harm the child, and Assistant U.S. Attorney Jeffrey Intravatola. At the same time, his behavior was extremely reckless, he said. Holloway knew the parents were substantial addicts and that they had a young child. Undercover buys in January 2023 and the results of a search warrant the following month tell me even after the baby dies, he's still selling fentanyl, Villardo said. Because of his marijuana use, Holloway also failed numerous drug tests while on release from custody as his case proceeded. Holloway told the judge he was prepared to accept the consequences of what happened. Holloway's crime carries up to 20 years in prison, but his plea agreement with the government called for a sentence between 121 and 135 months in prison. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Golisano Institute plans $10 million building renovation. But before we get to that, we want to let you know that you're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service, and the time being 20 minutes after the hour. Again, business at the Golisano School will occupy 3 floors of the former news site. Rochester businessman B. Thomas Golisano plans to reuse 3 of the 5 floors of the former Buffalo News building to teach entrepreneurship and artificial intelligence as part of an expansion of his business school this fall. The Golisano Institute for Business and Entrepreneurship will renovate the 1st, 4th, and 5th floors of the 155,460 square foot building at Washington and Scott Streets to create classrooms, study zones, and collaboration hubs. The Institute will occupy space that was once teeming with newspaper advertising, marketing, and circulation employees, or used by the newspaper's publisher as an office, boardroom, and private apartment. Aside from new entry doors, the exterior of the building will not change much, as Golisano intends to retain the precast concrete and windows of the building's brutalist design. And officials are trying to retain as much as they can of the building's original ceiling, floor, and other elements to give the building its character. Our goal is to maintain much of that design and look, understanding that we are putting classrooms inside on certain floors, said James Dettinger, Executive Vice President and Buffalo Regional Director for the Institute. We're paying a lot of attention to the original architecture and its intent. It's a very unique building, and we're really enjoying trying to incorporate that original concept into our plan. Golisano in October bought the 3.5-acre property at 125 Washington, including the office building in front, along with the former printing and production building behind it that used to house 2 German-made printing presses. He paid $10 million to developer Douglas Jamal, who had purchased the site in August 2024 from the News and its parent, Lee Enterprises, for $5.2 million. Launched in fall 2023 in suburban Rochester, the Institute is an alternative business school that offers a 2-year professional certificate in business and entrepreneurship at a tuition of $8,900 per year, including a new laptop. The 2-year program is designed to provide real-world experience in practical business schools. It's aimed primarily at high school graduates and young working professionals seeking a path to business education that is more direct and comparatively less expensive than traditional colleges. But it will also offer a new 1-year advanced certificate in artificial intelligence and business to better equip participating students with the leadership and technology skills for a digital world. This is something that no one's seen before in Buffalo, Dettinger said. It's going to be a pretty unique educational experience for the students and an incredible collaboration with our Buffalo businesses. The program features a fixed schedule of classes that meet twice a day on Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, with a break in between. On Wednesdays, the Speaking from Experience Forum brings in the entrepreneurs and other panelists to talk about their own experience starting or growing a business or managing a nonprofit. We just want to connect our students with people who have done things, Ettinger said. The whole goal is that by the time your internship starts in your first year, you might already have heard some ideas you might want to connect with. According to designs by CJS Architects and filed with the Buffalo Planning Board, Golisano plans to spend $10 million on the renovation of 83,706 square feet of the building. The second and third floors, which used to house press Pre-press functions and the newsroom will be left vacant for possible future expansion of the school or as a space for startups or partner businesses. The first floor, with its tall ceilings and lobby, will contain the main entrance and admissions offices, along with a classroom. The Speaking from Experience sessions will be held in the first floor auditorium. The seating will be removable, however, so the space can also host lunches, dinners, and other events. The fourth floor will include 8 closed classrooms and 1 open classroom, an entrepreneurship lab, a technology media center, 2 collaboration spaces, 2 testing rooms, 2 conference rooms, a study pod, and an AI hub, a library, an IT help area, and 13 small offices. It will house the majority of the classes. That floor has long contained a large garden as its centerpiece, with the ceiling open to a 5th floor atrium and a skylight above. Golisano officials plan to modify that by constructing steps to climb up to a platform or terrace into the plant area, which will now include seating for a collaboration space underneath the atrium and skylight. A new staircase will also lead up to the 5th floor, connecting the 2 levels. The 5th floor, formerly home to the news publishers, will include a large classroom, a conference room, 2 study pods, 2 collaboration spaces, 2 hoteling offices, and 3 standard offices, along with a store to purchase Institute merchandise. Officials are keeping the original boardroom with its wood paneling, as well as the dining and cafeteria area, although they won't be used for cooking, just eating or events. If approved, La Chase construction will begin work this month and finish by August, in time for the school to start. Officials project 75 to 100 students in the first year, growing to 250 by the 5th year. Linda?
Thank you, Larry. Some sports. Winning a Super Bowl will be the new coach's overarching goal. Obviously, it refers to the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills' decision to fire Sean McDermott sent shockwaves through the NFL on Monday. As that initial shock starts to wear off, the topic will quickly turn toward determining both why this decision was made now and, more importantly, whether it will be the right one. It is true that a coach winning his first Super Bowl with a team in the 10th year or later of his tenure is very rare. McDermott just finished his 9th season with the Bills. Only 3 coaches in the Super Bowl era have won their first championship in their 10th year or later, none of them in the last 20 years, and only 1 in 50-plus years. Pittsburgh's Bill Cowher, Dallas's Tom Landry, and Kansas City's Hank Stram are the only ones to have done so. These days, the pressure to win, the 24/7 nature of the NFL, pressure that is amplified by social media, makes it extremely unlikely that a coach ever gets to year 10 without winning a championship. McDermott went 8-8 in the postseason with the Bills. He and Seattle's Chuck Knox are the only 2 coaches in the NFL history to win at least 7 postgame seasons with one team without reaching the Super Bowl. McDermott has the most of all time. From that perspective, it's understandable that team owner Terry Pegula felt a change was necessary. What comes next, meaning who Pegula and new president of football operations / general manager Brandon Beane decide to hire, will be the important part. One thing that will greet the Bills' new head coach head-on is an immense amount of pressure. With quarterback Josh Allen in his age 30 season, the expectation will be to win a Super Bowl right away. Anything less than that will be a failure and will lead to the question of why McDermott was replaced. There have been 36 coaches to win the Super Bowl, 32 of whom were hired after the start of the Super Bowl era. Of those coaches, only 4 have won the Super Bowl in their first season on the job. Those first-year head coaches with that specific team were the Colts' Don McCaffrey, the 49ers' George Seifert, the Buccaneers' John Gruden, and the Broncos' Gary Kubiak. The second year has shown to be the most successful for the 32 to have won in the Super Bowl era. 8 of them, 28% of the total, have won it all in their second year on the job. That makes some sense, as a new coach has a year to get his preferred coaches and scheme in place, working in tandem with the general manager to acquire players who fit best. The last 2 examples on that list of 4 to win in their first season probably best apply to what the Bills hope to accomplish. The Broncos made it to the Super Bowl in 2013 under head coach John Fox and quarterback Peyton Manning, but got blown out by the Seahawks. After losing in the divisional round the following season, Broncos general manager John Elway fired the defensive-minded Fox and replaced him with Gary Kubiak. The move worked as Denver got back to the Super Bowl in Kubiak's first season and defeated the Carolina Panthers. McDermott, coincidentally, was the Panthers' defensive coordinator that year, 2 seasons before coming to Buffalo. The situation in Tampa, Florida was similar, although it was on a different side of the ball. The Buccaneers consistently had top 5 defenses under head coach Tom Dungy, but over a 6-year stretch that included 4 playoff appearances and 1 trip to the NFC Championship game, they couldn't break through. It took trading for Gruden before they finally did it in the 2002 season, winning their first Super Bowl. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. You're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time is 30 minutes after the hour. Turning to hockey. And last night's news, the Sabres beat the Nashville Predators 5-3. From the day before, the Sabres got stoned by a hot rookie. And this is from North Carolina and the game against the Carolina Panthers. Hurricanes, rather. The Panthers are football, boy. Talk about mixing metaphors or sports. Raleigh, North Carolina. Tage Thompson walked out of Lenovo Center early Monday evening, still stuck on 25 goals, and the Buffalo Sabres center was almost in belief he didn't tick his total at least to 26. Carolina rookie Brandon Bussi made sure of that. There aren't many more words needed about the Hurricanes' 2-1 victory over the Sabres than these 3. Bussi goalied Buffalo. He had to make just 17 saves to improve his record to an incredible 18-3-1 in what is becoming an historic rookie season for an NHL netminder. But at least 7 or 8 of the saves were prime scoring chances that went awry and left the Sabres shooters shaking their heads. I thought we competed really hard. We got our look, said Thompson, who had 6 of Buffalo's 18 shots on the day he was named the NHL's first star of the week. Ran into a hot goalie. He played a hell of a game, and you have to tip your cap. Definitely a lot of them I would have liked to have back. The topper to that list came on a Buffalo power play with 11:30 left in the second period, and the score tied at 1. A turnover by the Canes, who were clearly thinking they were in charge of possession, allowed Thompson and Jason Zucker to suddenly have a 2-on-0 down low in the Carolina zone. Thompson passed to Zucker at Bussi's left and burst to the net, taking a return pass and seemingly having a layup to put the Sabres ahead. But Thompson one-timed the puck directly into Bussi's gloved right hand, looking into the rafters in disgust and amazement at what may have rate as the save of the season play in the NHL. Zucks makes a great one-touch pass back to me, Thompson said. I felt like I had the whole net, and Bussi's glove came out of nowhere. He was just feeling it tonight. So when you run into a hot goalie, it's sometimes frustrating when you keep getting those grade A looks and they're not going in. How much of a shock was the save? TNT broadcaster Alex Foss and the Sabres radio play-by-play man Dan Dunleavy both immediately called the Thompson shot a goal, and the TNT scorebug flashed "goal" on television screens across the country. The entire arena was silent, too, assuming the puck was in the net. It was only as Sabres players circled without celebrating and a replay of the thievery went up on the Jumbotron that a sellout crowd of 18,299 erupted with cheers as they realized what had just happened. Save of the game for sure, and maybe the year, Carolina coach Rod Brindamore said. Tough to see a better save than that. I had seen a lot of work to that point, Bussi said. I hadn't seen a lot of work to that point, Bussi said. It might have been only the 4th or 5th shot. It was, in fact, number 5. It felt good prior to that, but I think it gave the arena, our team, and myself a little extra juice. Bussi blanked Buffalo over the final 58.5 minutes, allowing only Rasmus Dahlin's snapshot at 1:33 of the first period to elude him. You have to give credit to the goalie, Dahlin said. That's why they won today. Bussi stopped Bowen Byram in alone with Buffalo still up by a goal before Carolina's Andrei Svechnikov forced a 1-1 tie in the first period. The goalie stoned Owen Power streaking down the slot, and he confounded Thompson twice in the last 20 seconds with Ukko Pekka-Luukkonen on the bench for his sixth attacker. In that frenzied finish, the puck was frozen along the right boards for several seconds as Thompson stayed away from the plate to serve as an outlet. Once it came free, he had a patented slap shot from the left circle and a crack at a couple of rebounds. No dice. I was just waiting for that. They had all their guys on that side of the ice, and I thought I had a really good look there, Thompson said. He makes a good save, comes out, challenges me really hard. Rebound comes back, and I try to tuck it in behind him. We're just hacking away, and it seemed to go everywhere but the back of the net. The Sabres fell to 0-11-2 at Carolina since 2016, now the longest active winless streak by one team in another's rink in the NHL. And combined with Saturday's 5-4 overtime loss to Minnesota, the Sabres suffered their first back-to-back defeat since losing 3 straight from December 3rd to 9th. That was hard compete by both teams, Sabres coach Lindy Ruff said. It was a hard hockey game. It's big points and you have to come ready to compete, Dahlin said. And we did that, so it's tough that the puck didn't go in. Dahlin wasn't much for discussing the Sabres' winless streak in Carolina. Perhaps he was pondering a matchup with the Canes come April if the Sabres snapped their playoff drought. Yeah, next time, the Buffalo captain said. Around the boards. Rookie Konsta Helenis made his NHL debut and got his rookie lap to start warm-ups. He played 10:47 without a shot on goal while on a line with Noah Ostlund and Josh Doan. The Sabres sat defenseman Michael Kesselring and forward Jordan Greenway. It was originally thought both were sitting for load management to avoid playing in back-to-back games, but Ruff admitted that Kesselring's previous ankle injury was a little banged up after Saturday's game, and he's day-to-day.
Thank you, Larry. On to Asking Eric. Should old friend who ghosted still get party invite? Dear Eric, I became friends with one of my oldest and closest friends when we were 9 years old. In the last 3 years, it has been nearly impossible to see her. I routinely sent her text messages and voicemails asking if she wanted to get together. I finally resorted to sending her a message on Facebook. I was very surprised with her response that came several days later. She said I had not responded to a text a few years ago when she asked if we could go get dinner and didn't think that I valued her friendship, and therefore she wasn't going to put energy into it because it was very painful for her. I was baffled, sent her screenshots of my text messages asking if we could get together, call logs of unanswered and unreturned phone calls, invitations to events she didn't respond to, and apologized if she felt that I had not prioritized her as a friend. She never responded. On her 40th birthday, I sent her a brief text message wishing her a joyful year ahead and that I knew things were uneasy between us, and I would still love a chance to sit down together and have a conversation to repair the friendship. She has not responded. Friends are beginning to plan my 40th birthday celebration, and I have opted not to include her as a guest out of respect for her feelings. My husband feels that this is profoundly the wrong thing to do, and that, if anything, I should send her the invitation and give her a phone call letting her know that I would really appreciate the chance to get together. What is the right thing to do in this situation? From Broken Friendship. Dear Friendship, the safest thing is to invite her to the party, but the safe bet may not be the best bet for you. You've reached out multiple times in various forms and also apologized for something that seems more like a narrative she invented. It's normal for friendships to experience different seasons, especially as the complications of raising children, work, and distance make time scarcer. It seems she's being awfully ungenerous to you. If you invite her to your 40th, you may be setting yourself up for another disappointment. Whereas if you and your friend are able to reconnect at another time, she can join you at future birthdays without the tension hanging over everything. Dear Eric, I'm 66 and I live by myself. I feel so alone. I took care of my husband for 18 years. There wasn't much time to make friends. How or where do I start to find friends? From Wanting Company. Dear Company, start with what you enjoy. What hobbies or activities pique your interest? You can do a general search or look on sites like Meetup to get started. Or try something new. Explore something you've never thought about before. Take a tap dance class or a pottery course. Join a book club. Reach out to your local senior center, the AARP or YMCA, to see what they're offering. Something as simple as a meal or a movie night can introduce you to new people. Many readers also have written about the community they find at places like The Villages, which is a network designed to help elders age in place through activities, volunteer opportunities, and logistical support like rides. And that's at vtvnetwork.org. Dear Eric, I recently attended a concert where the audience sat for most of the concert and stood up for 3 or 4 songs. However, the person directly in front of me stood up for the entire concert, completely blocking my view. When I informed the person that they were ruining my experience, the person told me it was their right to stand. I asked an usher for help, but they refused to step in. Do you think it's appropriate for someone to be so inconsiderate? What is the correct etiquette at a concert from no view of the stage? Dear stage, concerts are a rare social space where it's appropriate, even encouraged, to stand if you can and want to. That doesn't negate your right to enjoy yourself too, but it might require some creativity. It could be possible to ask a nearby stander if you could switch places, or to ask an usher if you could move to a different seat. There are plenty of places where standing is going to be a no-go. I can't imagine standing through Hamlet unless I'm at the Old Globe, for instance. Stravinsky's Rite of Spring may have originally incited a riotous response, but people generally sit for it nowadays. However, depending on the type of music and the vibe of the concert, it may be necessary to find an alternative to ensure maximum enjoyment. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. 11 stunning moves by Trump in his first year back in office. Los Angeles. During his first term, President Trump was both praised and condemned for being wildly unpredictable, pushing boundaries and disregarding long-standing norms in Washington. During the 2024 presidential campaign, then Vice President Kamala Harris, Trump's opponent, spoke directly to his volatile leadership style in her final pitch to voters, saying their choice would determine whether we have a country rooted in freedom for every America or ruled by chaos and division. Of course, Americans returned Trump to the White House, and in the years since, they have watched Trump once again take stunning and unprecedented action, sometimes in line with his campaign promises, other times in direct conflict with them, deploying troops. During his campaign, Trump promised to launch the largest deportation operation in American history. The rollout has been tense as masked agents with U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, U.S. Customs and Border Protection, and other agencies have swarmed into American cities and detained large numbers of people, including many with no criminal convictions and some who are U.S. citizens. The agents' use of aggressive tactics and deadly force, including in the recent fatal shooting of Renee Nicole Cold by an ICE agent in Minnesota, has sparked protests and concern among local leaders and members of Congress. Trump has responded to some protests by ordering National Guard troops into cities, including Los Angeles. He also sent U.S. Marines into L.A. Those deployments were challenged in court. After a loss in the Supreme Court, Trump ended them. However, he has since threatened to send troops into Minnesota by invoking the Insurrection Act, threatening Greenland. Trump has repeatedly threatened to seize Greenland from Denmark, a NATO ally, and the White House has declined to rule out military force. Despite an existing agreement allowing the U.S. to maintain a strong military presence there, Trump has said full U.S. control of Greenland is necessary for regional security and to prevent Russia or China from taking control. Anything less than that is unacceptable, he said. U.S. seizure of the island would mark a stunning abandonment of NATO, which has linked the security of the U.S. and Europe for more than 75 years. European leaders have staunchly opposed any such move and called on the Trump administration to back off. Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen has said a U.S. takeover of Greenland would end the NATO alliance. Raising the East Wing. In October, Trump surprised historic preservationists and other political leaders by demolishing the East Wing of the White House, which was built in 1902 under President Theodore Roosevelt and rebuilt in the 1940s under President Franklin D. Roosevelt. Trump argued the historic building, which housed the First Lady's offices for half a century, needed to be cleared to make way for a $300 million ballroom for state dinners and other large events, which in the past have been hosted in tents in the White House lawn. Some defended the choice, saying a larger hosting space was long overdue. Still, the demolition of the iconic site riled many, not least because Trump carried it out without adhering to established processes for altering historic federal buildings, including by failing to submit his ballroom plans to the National Capital Planning Commission, which oversees renovations and additions to federal buildings in Washington. Deposing Maduro. On January 3rd, Trump announced that U.S. Special Forces had captured Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and his wife during an overnight military operation involving more than 150 U.S. aircraft entering Venezuelan airspace. Venezuelan authorities said 100 people were killed, including Venezuelan and Cuban security forces, and denounced the operation as a violation of Venezuela's sovereignty. Trump administration officials said the operation was to bring Maduro to justice on drug, weapons, and conspiracy charges to which Maduro has pleaded not guilty. Several foreign allies and adversaries and many Democratic leaders in Congress denounced the operation as a violation of international law that would embolden Russia and China to act with similar regional aggression. Trump cited the legal case against Maduro, but also Venezuela's vast oil reserves, which he said would be tapped to uplift Venezuelans, repay debts to American oil companies, and fund U.S. oversight of the country. Some critics were surprised that Trump was so forthright in his interest in Venezuela's oil. Pardoning January 6 rioters. One of Trump's first actions in office was to pardon or commute the sentences of those involved in the January 6, 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol, in which his supporters beat U.S. Capitol police officers in an attempt to stop Congress from certifying President Biden's 2020 election. Trump had telegraphed that he might pardon some of those charges in the assault after downplaying the attack and calling them hostages. However, he surprised many when he pardoned or commuted the sentence of everyone involved, more than 1,500 people, including those charged and convicted of the most violent attacks on officers. Among those freed by Trump were David Dempsey, a Van Nuys man who had been described by federal prosecutors as one of the most violent rioters. Dempsey had been sentenced to 20 years in prison after pleading guilty to assaulting a law enforcement officer with a dangerous weapon and breaching the seat of Congress. Berating Zelensky. In February, Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance raised diplomatic eyebrows around the globe when they publicly berated Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky in an unprecedented exchange in the Oval Office, accusing the U.S. ally of being ungrateful for American help in combating Russian attacks. Vance said Zelensky was being disrespectful and had failed to thank Trump for his support, even though Zelensky had thanked him. Then, after Zelensky said Ukraine would require security guarantees as part of any deal to end the war, and that a ceasefire was untenable because Russia would use it to regroup, Trump laid it in him, saying, "The problem is I've empowered you to be a tough guy, and I don't think you'd be a tough guy without the United States." He said Zelensky would make a deal with Russia or the U.S. would be out, which he wouldn't be pretty for Ukraine. "You don't have the cards," Trump said before accusing Zelensky of gambling with World War III. Investigating opponents. One after another, Trump's political opponents have been targeted with investigations led by political appointees in the Justice Department, often despite career prosecutors raising concerns. Several have been pursued by Bill Pulte, the Trump-appointed director of the Federal Housing Finance Agency, for allegedly committing fraud when securing home mortgages years ago, including by claiming multiple homes as their primary residence. Mortgage allegations have been made against Senator Adam Schiff, Democrat, California, Representative Eric Swalwell, Democrat, Dublin, New York Attorney General Letitia James, and Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook. In addition, former FBI Director James Comey was charged with allegedly lying to Congress and obstruction. And just this month, Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell said the Justice Department had threatened the central bank with a criminal indictment over Powell's testimony about federal building renovations, which he said was a pretext for the administration to undermine the Fed's independence in setting interest rates. Trump has defended the investigations as legitimate efforts to hold powerful people accountable for alleged crimes. However, many experts have argued the cases smack of political persecution. Charges against James and Comey were tossed. Instigating tariff wars. Trump has repeatedly destabilized global markets by instituting, lifting, and reimposing sweeping tariffs on foreign nations. On April 2nd, Trump held a Liberation Day event at the White House where he announced reciprocal tariffs against nations around the world, which he said were in response to the U.S. for decades being looted, pillaged, raped, and plundered by nations near and far, both friend and foe alike. Trump held up a poster board with new tariff rates, including 67% tariff on China and a 39% tariff on the European Union. He said the latter, a close U.S. ally, is seen as friendly, but they rip us off. Experts immediately questioned the methodology Trump used for calculating the figures, said the tariffs were not reciprocal, and raised concerns they would destabilize markets and increase costs for American consumers, which they did. Tariffs have also raised billions of dollars for the U.S. Treasury, but harmed some of the poorest nations in the world and sparked tensions with the nation's largest trading partners, including China, Canada, and Mexico. Bombing Iran. In June, the U.S. joined Israel in attacking Iran, sending American stealth bombers to drop bunker-buster bombs on 3 sites associated with Tehran's nuclear program. The attack followed Israeli strikes to destroy Iran's air defenses and offensive missile capabilities. In an address to the nation, Trump said Iran's key nuclear facilities were completely and fully obliterated. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian condemned the attack, saying the bombing showed that the United States is the primary instigator of the Zionist regime's hostile actions. Many worried the attack would be the precursors to a larger conflict, but Tehran's response was muted. Waffling on Epstein. During his campaign, Trump promised to release the Epstein files, a trove of records from the investigations into disgraced billionaire and convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, a one-time friend of Trump who died in federal prison in 2019. Many Americans, including Trump supporters, have long demanded the records, in part to assess whether other powerful men were complicit or involved in the abuse. However, after taking office, Trump, who has denied any wrongdoing, worked to prevent the release, pressuring members of Congress not to back a bill mandating it. Not until Congress appeared poised to pass the bill anyway did Trump relent, reverse course, and assign the measure into law. The Justice Department released a massive but extensively redacted trove of records in response to the new law in December, but they contained references to Trump being involved in or aware of Epstein's sexual abuse, which the White House called untrue. Ending birthright citizenship. Trump has signed a wave of executive orders radically altering U.S. policy in the federal government. One that stands out is his order purporting to end birthright citizenship for U.S.-born children of many immigrants, which is guaranteed by the 14th Amendment of 1868, which states, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and the state wherein they reside. This Trump administration has argued that the language applies to freed slaves, not the children of immigrants in the country temporarily or illegally. California, other states, and private groups challenged the order in court, and federal judges have put it on hold.
Thank you, Larry. One short article, folks. New fossils discovered at dinosaur monument. Parking lot construction at Colorado's Dinosaur National Monument unearthed new fossils last fall, the first discovery at the monument in more than 100 years, according to the National Park Service. Monument staff discovered the fossils, which likely belong to the Diplodocus, a large, long-necked dinosaur, on September 16th near the Quarry Exhibit Hall, according to a news release from the Park Service. Asphalt removal during construction exposed dinosaur-bearing sandstone. The Quarry Exhibit Hall, also known as the Wall of Bones, showcases roughly 1,500 dinosaur bones from the late Jurassic period, some dating back 150 million years, according to the Park Service. Roughly 3,000 pounds of fossils and rock were removed from the site near the exhibit hall between September and October, officials said in a release. Scientists at the Utah Fieldhouse of Natural History State Park Museum are now working to clean and study the remains. The work can be viewed in the museum's fossil preparation lab, Park Service officials said. Some fossils from the excavation are already on display at the museum and in the quarry exhibit hall. This location had not been excavated for fossils since the original excavations at the site ended in 1924, National Park Service officials stated in a release. Dinosaur National Monument sits on the edge of northwest Colorado and northeast Utah.
Thank you, Linda. You've been listening to a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for Wednesday, January 21st, 2026. We read the Buffalo News live on weekday and Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. and rebroadcast at 4 p.m. For more information, call 716-821-5555. Your readers today have been
Linda Ranella
and Larry Beenan. Thank you for listening, and please continue to stay safe.
If you or people you know shop at any of the Dash's supermarkets, please save Dash's register tapes for radio reading. Our agency receives $2 for every $100 in Dash's register tapes. Radio reading has raised thousands of dollars so far. Anyone can drop off their Dash's tapes to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, between William and Clinton Streets. Or Dash's tapes can be mailed to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, New York, 14227. Any questions on Dash's tapes for radio reading? Call us at 716-821-5555, and thanks for caring. following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low